You're listening to the Today in Manufacturing podcast.
Hi, I'm David Manti, and welcome to a new episode of the Today in Manufacturing podcast. I'm David Manti, and with me today is Anna Wells, and replacing Jeff Reinke this week is Andy Zoll. Andy, welcome back.
Hey, thanks. It's good to be here.
Hey, it's good to see you. Oh,
Yeah.
sorry. Well, we'll see.
Yeah.
Auditioning for the role of Jeff Reinke is Andy Zoll.
We're the editors of Manufacturing.net, Industrial Equipment News, and Design and Development Today, and we each have about 15 years' experience covering our respected industries. Every week, we cover the 5 most popular stories in manufacturing and the implications they might have on the industry going forward. Before we get started, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. You could also help us out a lot by giving the podcast a positive review on whatever platform you use. Finally, if you want to email one of us, you can reach us at Andy, David, or Anna at IEN.com. You can also reach Jeff at IEN.com if you want to say you missed him. Just put email the podcast in the subject line. Anna, how you doing this week?
I'm good. I'm feeling excited about the show this week. We got a lot of really nice fan mail, actually, this week.
Yeah, special thanks to people watching and listening, Kat, Mark, Jeremy, and Jim, and everybody else that reached out this week. We really do appreciate it. We do still have some Today in Manufacturing t-shirts, so if you want to reach out, we'll make sure to get those in the mail to you. Andy, have you picked up a Today in Manufacturing t-shirt yet?
No, I'm rifling. Well, I'm trying to rifle through that drawer a little bit, searching for the lone medium in there, and I don't think I found it yet.
I don't think there is one.
Yeah,
No.
so
Yeah.
When we were purchasing for our readership, we didn't know that we had to go under large. No. I mean, that was mostly for me.
For the next order, just keep me in mind.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, let's jump into our first story this week. Lawsuit says Amazon liable for crash that paralyzed man. Ans Rana, working on it, has filed a lawsuit that says Amazon is liable for injuries he sustained after he was hit by an Amazon delivery truck. Amazon claims it's not legally liable because the driver did not directly work for the company. This is where it gets tricky. The accident happened in March when the Amazon delivery van hit Rana from behind. The 24-year-old driver was paralyzed as a result of his injuries. Amazon says that the driver, despite wearing Amazon uniforms and driving a van covered in the company's logo, worked for Harper Logistics, a delivery service partner that Amazon uses to make deliveries. It's not just the uniform, but drivers are also required to use the Flex app, which monitors deliveries and worker performance, and the company also has cameras and other hardware installed in the delivery van. Anna, it seems like they're an Amazon employee up until the point it becomes a liability case.
Yeah, I mean, it does seem like that, right? I mean, this is obviously not the first time that Amazon's driver monitoring system has come under fire. It was widely reported last year about delivery drivers that were feeling compelled to urinate in bottles. Some even defecate in plastic bags in order to meet delivery quotas. Exactly, I know. And at the heart of it, apparently, was this driver monitoring app. Last year, Vice reported that drivers were being compelled to sign these biometric consent forms in order to keep their routes, which allowed the company to track in these vehicles kind of what they're doing. All onboard activities. And at the time that this incident or these incidents were occurring with like the lack of access to bathrooms and bathroom breaks, The Guardian reported that Amazon knew that its drivers were peeing in bottles based on a memo that was issued asking them not to. So I don't know, like everyone's talking about, we always talk about slippery slopes on the show. Jeff the most.
You're
Jeff,
right.
Yeah.
Right.
He's probably somewhere right now talking about a slippery slope, if I know Jeff. But this one seems like a pretty steep slope, maybe like covered in melted butter. Like it's really hard. It's hard to argue against an unwritten expectation for insane levels of productivity, whether that's a cultural thing or just like, I don't know, if there's like no real proof of like a clear directive, right? But in this case, it's documented what Amazon expects. And I think it's going to be hard to argue that it's not Amazon pushing these punishing delivery speeds. They're using this app. I feel like these are Amazon workers at the end of the day, right? I mean,
especially the crash happened. The van was allegedly going about 68 miles per hour in a 55 zone when he hit the car and sent it into another lane when it was struck by another vehicle. I mean, Andy, I feel like a reason he's speeding is because he has impossible quotas to meet.
That would probably not be an unreasonable assumption. I mean, 68 and 55 is not crazy fast. It's not, I mean, we all drive on the Beltline. I mean, so, but I just can't get over how not good a look this is. Now, liability in civil cases, I'm not a lawyer, but that's, a tricky subject. It can be split in some cases. So I'm sure they're just looking out for their interests in court here, but it's not a good look for you to go to court for this person who's paralyzed and say, this is not our fault, even though it's our name on the van, our contractor we picked, our uniform on the guy. Like, it's just, how they hash this out in court is fine, but in public opinion in that space, it's just really a bad look.
Whenever they come to your door, do you ever think that they're employed by anyone other than Amazon?
It has not occurred to me to ask which subcontractor they work for. No.
Well, I just mean,
everything. You're absolutely right.
We have a distribution center right by our house, and they've pretty much commandeered the gas station next to it, and it's just lined up with Amazon vans that are all pulling in and out of the Amazon warehouse. And really, up until this situation, I never thought they worked for anyone other than Amazon.
Yeah.
So I also wonder now, and if this is why my dog goes crazier when the Amazon guy shows up rather than the postal worker, because he is reeking of his own urine and feces. But maybe not.
That might be a reason. I don't. I don't know where to go with that.
Well, okay, so. The other thing I was thinking about, regardless of how my dog responds to the Amazon delivery truck, is that this reminds me of like the gig economy gone wrong.
Exactly. And that's an excellent point. And I think you have to look at like who's driving this train. Clearly it's Amazon. I mean, if you looked at something that happened with an Uber driver and it was related to the app or it was related to some quota or whatever, like, that's a third party employee of Uber. You're seeing all these lawsuits in California, especially right now, around what responsibilities these parent companies have over gig workers. And more, at least in California, they've been siding against Uber and Lyft and saying, no, you have a responsibility to pay a fair wage. You have to follow these laws. You have to support them, treat them like they're employees and not contractors, with an eye on stemming in some of the exploitation that is occurring there. I could see this in the same light as that, easily. And to Andy's point, I don't know how this will, is this enough to win a lawsuit? I don't know, but it is pretty compelling to see them in that Amazon uniform, in an Amazon truck, using that Amazon app.
No, Andy, do you think that what has gone on with Uber and that company's, quote, independent contractors might foreshadow what could happen to Amazon here?
I mean, every jurisdiction is different. Every court case is different, but I mean, it's not just the ride sharing, and everything has kind of devolved into contractors. It's cheaper in any number of industries to just kind of, outsource, for lack of a better word. These, rather than pay people, you just have a contractor who does it. So this has been decades in the making, and I guess that was my point with that, basically.
I
don't know where to take that there. This is not a new phenomenon.
I guess, one of the points that you said is that it's, it's not crazy to go 68 into 55. And the lawsuit argues that it was Amazon who forced drivers to rush to the point that it was unsafe. And I mean, I wonder if that is still unsafe if he was just going with the flow of traffic.
I'm not sure about the particular instances. It's hard to imagine he was going with the flow of traffic when you end up rear-ending somebody, but...
Yeah, understood.
Yeah.
All right, well, I guess we'll see what else comes out with this case. I know that we'll wind up covering it again. All right, our next most popular story this week, factory workers file complaints after being, quote, treated like animals. Employees at a Refresco bottling factory in Wharton, New Jersey are angry. And workers recently filed federal complaints with OSHA to report unsafe conditions. In June, employees voted to form a union following some 18 months of organizing after reports of low wages, minimal benefits, and sexual harassment. However, after the vote, Refresco, the largest independent bottling corporation in the world, filed a legal appeal against the move to form a union. The company recently held a rally to try and get the company to begin negotiations with their union, or the employees recently held the rally. And on top of that, almost 250 workers reported issues with the plant. One lead machine operator said, quote, "We are treated like animals." Other complaints to OSHA included standing in pools of chemical water, seeing sewage on the floor during a shift, minimal to no time off, understaffing, lack of adequate machine operation training, and potential hearing loss. There were also 2 reports of fires in the last 2 months, and not only did the fire alarms fail to go off, but Anna, the fire department wasn't even called either.
What is happening here?
All bad. No, it seems like, no, it's just a look from the outside looking in, but it seems like the company might be taking advantage of its workers. I'm not certain.
Yeah, there's clearly just this overhanging like animosity between management and the workers here. And that's been documented. That's not for me, but like I read an article published in October, and I apologize, I can't remember who ran it, but it was about how this union was formed and how much money Refresco actually spent trying to quash union sentiment in the plant. And it all started from what sounds like a spontaneous protest that was related to the company's lax approach to coronavirus protocols, ignoring worker symptoms, refusing to do contract tracing, refusing to shut down, stuff like that. When the company workers started trying to organize, which I think was on the momentum, kind of on the back end of this. It was reported the company posted anti-union flyers and put workers through what's been described as mandatory anti-union meetings that were presented as informational sessions teaching immigrant workers about U.S. labor law.
Oh, mandatory propaganda.
Right. So, and the report said that the company tried to basically exploit the ethnic and linguistic differences of the workers to sow doubt and confusion among immigrant workers. So real nasty stuff. And then, so when the unionization was established, it was a big win, even bigger because this was predominantly an immigrant workforce, which I think that's a group that's notoriously been less likely to stand up and speak up,
rock
for
the boat.
Better pay conditions, So to see Refresco continue to push back, and I think, the workers, because Refresco has filed this appeal and refuses to recognize the union, they're kind of in this limbo right now. And then to hear about all these other horrifying, dramatic details about working conditions, like, it's just a really sad story. I don't know. It made me depressed reading about this, just how awful it would be to work there. And, you think like people are in a good position right now potentially to change jobs, but man, what is going on here?
Well, like you said, they're primarily Latin American immigrants. I think that's why they're being taken advantage of. But Andy, one employee told the Daily Record, we're asking for basic things. And I tend to agree when they just don't want to stand in chemicals or work next to sewage anymore.
That would be a basic worker protection issue that you would lobby for, yeah. But this laundry list of things is particularly egregious, but this is also a PR volley in this labor fight, and it's not completely unreminiscent of things we've seen in the food sector, particularly the food sector, but in other places too. Over the past months, years, workers, either from the perspective of coronavirus protections or just the realization that, consumer demand is there, they have more power now in the labor market than they have seemingly in decades. We've seen this kind of thing over and over again. Kellogg's, Frito-Lay, there was a messy strike there over people working, I can't remember how many hours per week, some insane threshold. And it exemplifies, this episode I think exemplifies maybe how workers are realizing their power, but also maybe they're in a position to say, hey, these kinds of treatment of us, it's not okay. We're fed up. We can do something about it now.
Well, it seems like it's definitely escalating. It's, trying to form a union, fighting against the union, not recognizing the union, filing 250 complaints with OSHA. I mean, that definitely seems like a lob back at the company.
Yeah. And I think to Andy's point, like, the timing is good for pushing back, but I think this story kind of illustrates how difficult it still is, for some of these workers to gain any traction in these fights. Like, they're really up against a lot of money. If a company has enough initiative to try to ferret this out and not respond and not work with it, they have a lot more money, a lot more resources to try to do so. And for these workers who have like really kind of tried to bust through and make this work, it's still not working.
One of the things that I found interesting is, did you notice what initially got them to start working on a union is the attendance system that penalized workers for getting sick during the pandemic. Mm-hmm. And that just, of all times, to not get hardcore about sick days, I don't know. Maybe
sometimes the hardest thing to do is read the room, I guess.
True. Well, Refresco is a Dutch-based transnational company with production facilities in Europe, the United States, Canada, and Mexico. So I got to put on the Jeff hat for a second and be like, well, everyone's got to be careful here because, if the employees start asking for too much, we definitely know that they got other places they could go with these products. And I think that's, a realistic flex that a transnational company has. They don't necessarily need Wharton, New Jersey.
Yeah, but I would take care of the chemicals and the fires and stuff first before you start saying
shopping.
You're
for
asking for too much. I'm moving to Canada.
Yeah, and one thing that we talk about on the show a lot is how as a consumer you can also make choices as a result. To kind of share your opinion on it.
Yeah, that's true. I've been voting with my wallet against Arizona iced tea for my entire life.
Same with Tropicana juices, but the company also bottles Body Armor for Coca-Cola, Gatorade for Pepsi. And I think when people see stories like this, related to brands like that, they do make decisions with their wallets, even if it is for a lifetime.
Yeah, Andy, what's it going to take to get you to stop drinking Body Armor for Coca-Cola?
I just am not familiar with that particular brand name.
I think the first time hearing of that.
Yeah, I think that what we cover, this is obviously in the news, but it also, increasingly every week, every year tends to get lost in the wash. So whether they can keep up this kind of public pressure to turn that and make the company feel it in their wallet, we'll have to see. But as far as relocating to a place where you couldn't make your employees stand in chemicals, I don't think Europe, Canada, I don't think that's gonna other states. Like, I know things vary state to state, but I don't think that's allowed anywhere. So that's
they'll have to clean it up a little bit.
Yeah.
And Body Armor, I actually know very well because one article was written about how it helps women feel better during pregnancy. So we had a shelf dedicated to Body Armor.
Did it work?
Made her happy. Right. Made me happy.
All right.
Worked.
Yeah.
Worked just fine.
That sounds like it worked to me.
Beyond that, not sure. All right. Moving on to our next story this week. Electrician ordered to pay $481 million for scam. On Tuesday, an electrician in California was ordered to pay $481.3 million in restitution for his role in a $1 billion Ponzi scheme. 46-year-old Joseph Bayless posed as an engineer to help cover it up. On top of the restitution, he was sentenced to 3 years in federal prison. Prosecutors say he was hired by DC Solar to pose as a licensed engineer to inspect new mobile solar generator units mounted on trailers. The company marketed the generators from 2011 to 2018 as an emergency power resource for cell phone companies, NASCAR events, and other uses. The generators never made money, and early investors were paid with funds from later investors. That's the Ponzi scheme.
That's how it works.
Yeah. The company stopped building the generators altogether, and at least half of the companies claimed 17,000 generators never existed. Bayless signed off on thousands of reports in a 2-year span saying the generators had been inspected and tested. He was paid about $1 million for the effort. So, Anna, just about a $480.3 million swing for him then.
Yeah, you almost feel bad for this guy for a second being like a corporate shill for these hucksters, but he like then you hear that he was paid $1 million. That restitution money is never coming.
No, and it's understood that it's owed by all defendants as this like restitution pool. But could you imagine that verdict coming down?
Oh God, yeah. But the CEO or the founder or whatever, Jeff Karpoff, he was, if you look at some of the amount of money that he pulled out and spent on crazy. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Anyway, so I was curious to know how the interview process went for this because he was described as an electrician that was hired to pose as an engineer and participate in this fakery, I guess.
So from the beginning, from the onset, he knows that he's in some sort of shady business.
Well, I was just, it was funny to me to imagine that it was like they put the job posting on Indeed or something. And then just like a regular dude comes in, interviews, and they're like, all right, I need to level with you. No, so I did some digging and I found the story in the Sacramento Bee that details this actually. And so Jeff Karpoff, the owner of DC Solar, who was sentenced to 30 years in prison, and this guy, Joseph Bayless, were high school buddies. They like met in shop class. And Karpoff was apparently quite clear with him and told him to buy a burner phone and start scraping these VIN stickers off so they could perpetuate the scam. So he got like in deep, obviously. I guess the reason his sentence was so much lighter than his boss's, which was like 10 times, in fact, despite his integral role in this, was that Bayless was the one who stepped forward to cooperate first. So he kind of sang at the end, and his attorneys tried to characterize him as a mope. They actually used the word mope.
Oh, no.
This mope who was suddenly made to feel rich and important, and basically that he was taken advantage of. Which I don't know. I mean, maybe, but like, because when he was on trial, I think at his sentencing, he basically said like, I'm a despicable human being. He was very like repentant. Who knows who that plays to or if that's genuine or not. But his buddy, Jeff Karpoff, like I had said or alluded to earlier, he was the one who was really spending this money, and his wife is actually facing like 15-year potential sentence for the lavishness of this. So I don't know. This guy being paid $1 million actually doesn't feel as insane when you look at some of the other parties here that were also to blame.
Andy, your thoughts on this mope getting 3 years?
Mope.
I mean, this mope was clearly not the ringleader. So, and he's facing not him, but it's in this press report. It sounds like he's facing a $400 million tab, which is almost worse than the whatever decades you could, because the decades, God willing, you could pay. You're never paying the $480 million. Right. Anyway.
You would rather go to prison for 30 years?
No, I'm just saying it's more likely.
File bankruptcy.
It's more likely you could fulfill the terms of the prison sentence than the $480 million tab.
I see what you mean. Yeah, got it.
Can you imagine like your check being garnished and it has what was garnished and what's remaining?
Oh, God.
I wonder what the number is where if you hear it and what you owe, you pass that, you don't even care.
Yeah.
Like $300 million, keep going. I don't care.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A billion. Let's do $1 billion. I don't care. Round it up.
Yeah.
I like this scheme because it seems like usually in Ponzi schemes like the Madoff scheme, it's just like a pure just investment scam. They're just like, oh, give me your money. I'll make it whatever. And they just it's finance guys and they just keep going and going and going. This company seemed like they actually like made generators and then figured it was easy to just scam people out of their money. Like, oh, this is easier than actually like making a product that works and like being good at it. Like we'll just do this and we'll use it to buy Burt Reynolds 78 Firebird.
I saw that
Is that
too.
what it was?
Yeah. They auctioned off Burt Reynolds 78. It was like a Trans Am Firebird or something. Yeah. And it was pretty cool.
So did Karpoff or Bayless get the Firebird?
No, Karpoff.
He got
like
that's why he got 30 years because he got all the cool stuff.
Yeah, he got like 150 something rare vehicles that he bought during his tenure at DC Solar.
Yeah, 32 properties. Him and his wife. 32 properties, 150 luxury cars, a subscription to a private jet service, a semi-pro baseball team, a NASCAR race sponsorship, and a suite at the new Las Vegas Raiders Stadium.
Why would you not just like keep it down a little bit with that? I don't know. Like, why would you buy like a sporting team, like a sporting team.
A sporting.
Got to launder your money through something.
Well, he had plenty to launder.
But wouldn't you just like try to keep it quiet a little bit? I don't know. He's like, that's very ostentatious, like show of wealth when that wealth is ill-gotten. I don't know if I would be so.
That's usually how it goes with this, though, right? No one's content to just like let it
true.
accrue in the bank.
That's true.
But I think so often we've seen that happen with the PPP loan fraud, the SBA loan fraud, where, you know, maybe it was they just bought a second house and then no one came calling. I mean, it was over 7 years. And so it's like they bought a third house and they're like, no one's asking. So, and then finally you're buying Burt Reynolds' car while you're like throwing out the first pitch of your semi-pro baseball team. You're just like, nah, I think we got it figured out. I think what's worse is that, not worse, obviously, but that Bayless is going to go through the rest of his life being known as the DC Solar Mope.
The Mope. Thanks, defense attorney.
like-
I mean, he's probably like, I'm not gonna be too nice when I get up there. I'm sorry. And Bayless is like, I just say whatever.
Beats prison.
Yeah,
Right?
Beats prison.
Why hasn't your dad been around? He's the DC Mope. Oh, Jesus.
Yeah.
You know, Anna, to your point too, sometimes when the scheme starts to unravel, maybe just turn. You know, as like after the company was served in 2018, Bayless destroyed at least 1,000 identification stickers on these generators, removed another 200 stickers from generators. So, I mean, they obviously knew their plot was unraveling.
Yeah, I don't blame him at all for doing that.
Man. So of these many luxury items that Karpov has, the government has only, and I say only, seized about $120 million worth of his possessions that'll be used as partial restitution to the victims.
Jeez.
So, oh my goodness, who gets the Firebird?
It was auctioned off.
Oh, it was. Okay.
Yeah.
And then the proceeds go to the victims for their like 10 cents on the dollar of what they lost or whatever.
I didn't know if like that's just sitting in the like front lobby of Berkshire Hathaway right now.
Yeah,
I
that's
hope
true.
so.
Warren Buffett was one of the victims.
Yeah.
So maybe he has it.
I think Berkshire got hit with like a $340 million loss.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Oh, I remember that. And it was like actual like stock market worthy like problem. Yeah. I remember that. Ugh.
And man, it's interesting to see like the pennies on the dollar that they get for some of the things that they buy on these elaborate spending sprees. I'd be interested if I had known. Maybe they haven't auctioned it off yet, but I'd just like to sit in on the auction for the baseball team.
Well, I don't know if
Do
they're
we have a name for the baseball team, by the way?
I
didn't look into
That's
that.
all it said.
In your opinions, is 30 years and a $790 million restitution penalty excessive for the crime?
Pass. Andy.
I mean, I don't think he's a danger to society other than swindling. Well, I guess he is because he's swindling people out of their money. But as far as it being a deterrent, I'm not sure I buy that. I mean, people will always maybe look for a quick, but not everybody. But
Well, we saw
your
that
certain
during
scam
the
artists
pandemic.
might look for a quick buck here or there still. So I think you have to probably try to send a message, but I'm not
There's
sure
no way
it'll-
he spends 30 years in
No.
prison. Not a chance.
no.
No,
He's getting the low hand treatment. He'll be out in a couple of years.
It's just a lot of times when we talk about this type of fraud, we always say the penalties need to be harsher. And then finally, when somebody gets a harsh penalty, for me, I was just like, 30 years seems like a lot.
I mean, it is a lot.
It's anyway, his team, the Martinez Clippers.
All right.
Yeah, established in 2018. Not much for a logo, but they were part of the Pacific Association of Professional Baseball Clubs based out of California.
Did the team fold?
I don't know if the team folded. Oh, no. The league commissioner has come out saying that he hopes to keep the Clippers as a member of the league, but under new ownership.
They got some back taxes to pay.
Right? I don't see any notable Martinez Clippers, but
So list the owner as Uncle Sam now.
right?
You can
Owner.
change it in Wikipedia.
Oh, there you go.
It's actually Joe Biden is the owner of this team. That's what he's been up to. Anyway, no notable MLB prospects currently on the roster. All right. Let's move on to our second most popular story this week. And I thought it was really cool that this wound up being the second most popular story. It's been shared quite a bit, particularly on LinkedIn, where there's been a big conversation about the technology. Shape-shifting micro robots deliver drugs to cancer cells. A new proof of concept study from a global team of researchers used fish, crab, and butterfly-shaped micro robots to deliver chemotherapy cargo directly to cancer cells. Magnets direct the robots to the cancer cells, and a pH change triggers them to open their mouths or their claws and release the drugs. The robots are an example of 4D printed technology, which are 3D printed robots that change shape in response to a certain stimuli. The robots are printed in a pH-responsive hydrogel and then suspended in iron oxide nanoparticles, which makes them magnetic. This is one of the first times that micro robots were steered remotely, and they were steered with a magnet. The fish navigated artificial blood vessels, opened its mouth, and released the chemo cargo, which killed nearby cancer cells. Now, the work is exciting, but next the team will work to make the micro robots even smaller so they can navigate real blood cells. The video is on IEN.com, and the entire study and supplemental materials are available on ACS Nano. Andy, I just want to stress, they should watch the video because if anything, that alone is incredible.
It really, really is. It's wild. I had heard of this technology where you print things that respond to external stimuli. I didn't know it was called 4D printing, but that makes sense, I guess.
Me neither. I thought when I saw 4D, I thought that meant it smelled.
Yeah. So this is exciting, not only obviously from a medical perspective, but just that the advances that this represents for that sort of technology, you would think would have applications, I mean, throughout any number of industries, medical and beyond. So it's a really exciting technological as well as medical advance.
No, it is. I mean, at this point in our lives, everyone has been touched by cancer in some way. And if you've seen firsthand the devastating effects of chemotherapy, anything that, I mean, battling cancer aside, like anything that can make chemo a little bit more livable is great work, in my opinion.
Yeah, and to your point, I think you can't help but recognize that the story was likely so popular, I think, because everyone has been touched by cancer, either themselves, a loved one. So, any kind of progress, I think, has a monumental impact, and it is really exciting. Although it's still only a proof of concept, like Andy said, I think that viability takes this anywhere. Like so many medical applications, difficult treatments that have very, very challenging side effects. It would be great to see if this could be applied to treatments of other diseases. But I would say one of the things I thought of when I saw this, and just a note, I guess, that 2020 was a hard year for some research universities, including like Harvard and Johns Hopkins, who saw their donation pool shrink significantly during the pandemic. I think there was a lot vying for philanthropy dollars at that time between people having hardships over food, COVID research. I mean, there was a lot of things going on in 2020, especially the early part. So, I mean, even stuff like GoFundMe's that for your favorite local business, I think people were just out of pocket shelling out money to things that they normally wouldn't be. And I think some organizations, research organizations and the like, sort of suffered from that. Not all, of course. But stories like this, I think, help generate greater interest and just kind of remind the public what's going on behind the scenes and that a lot of development is happening there. You hear it. It's just sort of very specific against that broader backdrop of cancer research and what that is. So, encouraging people to kind of think about as they're going into the holidays and trying to, dump some money on charity before the end of the year, guys. We got some practical innovations happening here.
Because it feels good, not because it's a write-off.
No, I know, but the timing, do at the same time, you can take advantage of the write-off and also feel good.
You're getting hit up by a lot of different organizations this time of year, so you just want to file that under there with those.
Yeah, think about that.
So many complimentary return address stamps.
Yes.
Or stickers. Yes.
So many.
So many. No, Anna, to your point, one of the things that I liked about this is as I was writing this up, I was trying to figure out researchers from which university. And it's a pool of researchers out of Hong Kong, a pool of researchers out of Germany, a pool of researchers out of the States. And it was incredible. It was incredible. And I mean, the medical applications aside, this could have applications in pretty much anything that has a liquid medium, where a micro robot could traverse the liquid medium to deliver, to fix something that's broken, deliver a component. You know, it's a little far-fetched, and we talked about it quite a bit when like nanotechnology first came out and the prospect of it, and then it was ruined by the Transformers franchise. But it's, I think it's pretty cool. I mean, to see the little fish micro robot with the chemo drug in it, and they have it lit up under the camera so you can see it, watch it deliver the drug and kill the cells. And then the little crab, I mean, it doesn't even look real. No. The little cartoon crab with its tiny, perfect, like semicircle hands, all of a sudden it grabs chemo or the drug, like crab walks it to the cancer cells. I mean, also whoever designed the micro robots really got an eye for
If you're going to do something like this, you got to do it right.
The only thing I didn't understand was I didn't see how the butterfly one. I saw how the butterfly robot moved, but I didn't see how that delivered the drug, whether or not that's an antenna still in development.
Flew to it.
Yeah. One of the things that's interesting, or that they also need, is they still need better imaging, because while they can move it in body, they need a better imaging method to track it as it moves in the body. So still a little bit out, but kind of something good on the horizon.
For sure. Yeah.
All right. Our most popular story this week, and I'm really going to try to get through saying this company's name with a straight face, but a bakery's sudden closure leaves 200 jobless. In November 2019, the Muffin Ma'am with an M, a baked goods manufacturer, announced a new 100,000 square foot bakery plant in Lawrence, South Carolina. 2 years later, on November 9th, 2021, the plant abruptly closed, and its more than 200 workers found out by a sign on the plant doors. The note said the plant was closed because the bank had frozen the Muffin Ma'am's assets and account. It's devastating, but what makes it worse is that on the previous day, the company told employees that the plant would close, but not until January 7th. The company said it was crushed by COVID, with initial lockdowns hurting revenue, followed by skilled labor problems and supply chain disruptions. Muffin Ma'am owes almost $6 million to 189 creditors with assets of less than $50,000. I missed a zero. Andy, your thoughts on the incredibly unsolvent situation that Muffin Ma'am finds itself in?
So this company was pinning their difficulties on the same things that every other business is facing, basically. And not every other business is basically shutting down on 24 hours notice. So I have a hard time kind of buying that. A lot of things that we talk about here, I'm talking as a reporter. So I've done some research on it. Maybe I have a little experience with it, but I'm not a roboticist. I'm not a professional. I'm not an expert. I'm just, trying to do my best here. So
you're not a Muffin Ma'am yourself.
Right.
Yep.
That's right. But I do have some experience with this. So I can tell you that when a business says, okay, we're going to wind things down, declare bankruptcy, restructure, and a bank says, no, forget that, you're done, there's a lot more going on than just the standard difficulties that every other business is facing. So I can tell you that for sure.
Yeah, I mean, from quite personal experience.
That's right.
Yeah. Anna, do you know the Muffin Ma'am?
No. Why?
And are you disappointed that said Muffin Ma'am and other companies that are going under just kind of fly that COVID-19 flag and as a sort of catch-all for their financial problems?
I'm glad that was a multi-point question.
But first,
do I know?
Yeah.
Do I know? No. Nope. No, I was kind of with Andy on this, though. Like when they said they were hurt by the initial lockdowns, like how long were those really until food manufacturers became labeled essential? That was very quick.
Couple of weeks.
Couple of weeks. And then weren't we all like carbing up after that? So I feel like a muffin manufacturer would have been better positioned than most businesses for
We
navigating.
just talked about how food demand has just gone through the roof because
Yeah.
nobody was going anywhere. Like you're having stuff at home.
Yeah, personally, I was eating a ton of muffins, as were my children.
And I was eating a lot of dessert cakes and brownies, the other items they specialized in.
Yes, but this analysis is not helpful for me. But the workers are out of a job here. The timing of this obviously could be worse for them. But part of me wonders if this story was so heavily trafficked because people were like, jobless workers, where?
Oh,
like,
yeah.
send me your application. Like we read about that we talked about that gun maker recently who was planning to shut down
Yes.
a bunch of neighboring local businesses. Were trying to sort of solicit the workforce via road signs and things. I think maybe our industry now views these plant closure type stories in a completely different context. I mean, this has been happening for years and years, right? But like now it's more an issue of like, why did this happen? Where are these highly skilled workers going? I think. I mean, there was a time where we would see a plant closure story and everyone's like, that's sad, that sucks, the economy or whatever,
Yeah, or the town's gonna die.
Yeah, or the town's going to die. And then and those poor workers, how are they going to find jobs? And now it's sort of flipped on its ear a little bit. So it does make me wonder like what was motivating so many people who saw this story to view it. What were they thinking about when they did?
I think part of it is the sign on the door. Because there's no greater kick in the teeth than showing up to work on Monday or Tuesday and just being like, oh, what is it, a new policy about being able to wear jeans? No, it's all over. It's all over.
Yeah,
Could have sent it to me in an email, you know?
That's
Yeah,
gutless.
right?
So gutless.
It
man.
is
Like,
it's happened before locally where a local restaurant shut down, the old school Ground Round shut down with just a sign on the door. And it's still like Madison legend. It's because it's so
Pinecone just did that
the pine
they
cone
just
did
put
that.
up a sign?
Yeah.
Ooh.
They put up
with some
quite the sign.
tone-deaf political messaging for the area. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, for the area that was shut down by local media. Luckily, that wasn't covered nearly as much as that meme. Troubling. But yeah, it does sound like a perfect storm of events. And one of the things that I've found interesting is that, so in April 2020, Muffin Man reportedly received $943.5 million in PPP fund money.
Wait, say that number again.
Am I reading that? No, sorry, $943,000.
That's better.
That's way better. Yep, sorry, that one's a period. It's
Here's
not
$1
a comma.
billion for your muffin business.
Yeah. Okay, not $1 billion, but they received $1 million in April, and they're closing in November. The following year.
Something sounds mismanaged
Yes.
potentially here. Yeah.
It's almost like they were using something to cover for something else. Like,
Well, and $50,000 in assets, though, so that means they like don't own their building. They don't own probably a lot of their equipment even.
No, probably
So
heavily levered.
that's rough.
So to your point, Anna, about, the run on skilled labor, a lot of these jobs, according to Glassdoor, were workers that were making like $10 to $15 an hour. Some bakers, machine tending, stuff like that. To me, it just felt like a lot of these workers were likely living paycheck to paycheck, and now they're not going to receive their last check, let alone any vacation time or other money that they were owed coming right into the holiday season. Not that if it was any other season, it would be better.
Yeah.
But a lot of these people thought that they had at least until Jan 7 to figure it out. And now the rug's been completely taken out from underneath
Yeah.
them. And it's
that's
just
terrible.
what really bugged me about that is so the Muffin Man released a statement. And I know that I joked last week or the week before about the random statement generator, that they're just using AI to put out this tone deaf comments. But Muffin Man comes out and says, we're confident the hardworking and talented associates of the Muffin Man will prove to be a valuable resource for other firms in the upstate of South Carolina that have more successfully navigated the many challenges of this pandemic. We truly wish each and every one of our employees and their families the very best. So they came out and said like, well, hopefully you can catch on with somebody that did it better, huh? Good luck to you.
Yeah, I'm sure that all these people are going to take those best wishes and tell you to shove them. But
Yeah.
ma'am.
Don't worry. They said they're sorry-ish, and they want nothing but the best for us.
I guess.
Which is why they completely overturned our life in a single night.
Just before Thanksgiving.
And I know that people are curious, but it turns out that the Muffin Man does not live on Drury Lane.
No one was curious.
It's actually Hunter Industrial Park Road.
Is that not in the famous nursery rhyme?
No.
That's not the words?
Yeah. The Muffin Man who lives on Hunter Industrial Park Road.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Are there any more words to it besides that one line? I can't remember anything besides that.
No,
that's the whole song.
Do you know him? And then the one on Hunter Industrial Road Park. Park
and
Road?
then no one responds, and then the person just leaves.
Yeah.
Do you know him?
Yeah.
All right.
Moving on.
All right, then.
Yep.
Yeah. Drury Lane was in London. I just looked that up. Oh, Drew. See, it was a location problem. Eric, our producer,
how would we know
says,
him?
Yeah, Drury Lane's in the UK. And I mean, that must be why the Muffin Man didn't work.
And why we didn't know him.
Yeah, exactly.
I've never been to Drury Lane
No.
in Sussex, England.
Yeah. One day, guys, over that holiday break, I say we
Bucket
go.
list. Yeah, let's do it.
Field trip.
We go pull some old dessert cakes out of the Muffin Man freezer and head ourselves overseas. It's going to be a beautiful day. All right. Well, let's move on to In Case You Missed It. Anna, what was your In Case You Missed It, which I forgot to say are stories that were less popular with our readership, but, still stand to make a big impact on the industry going forward. What do you have for us this week?
Sure. So we have a little update on the UAW.
Okay.
The UAW suffered a rather humiliating public censure last year when, after so many indictments on corruption-related charges amongst its leaders and associates, a settlement with federal prosecutors required the appointment of a monitor to oversee the UAW's activities for 6 years. So, as in, you need a babysitter.
Yeah.
So a year in, the monitor, who is a former federal prosecutor, has issued his first report and basically says that he has 15 open investigations underway currently, and that the toxic culture, his words, that plagued the UAW in the past is still there. So UAW pointed to some of the positive changes the union has made, including the establishment of an ethics hotline.
That's not a good sign.
And the hiring of a new ethics officer. But the monitor is saying that the organization hasn't done enough to respond to the repeated warnings about the pressing need to transform its culture. So my favorite part of the story was when he said his report shouldn't take away from, quote, the meaningful changes that have occurred since the government started putting former UAW officials in prison. So I take that statement as a very backhanded compliment on the UAW's progress that gives no credit whatsoever to the UAW itself. So my feelings on this were mixed. It was disappointing that this toxic culture is so prevalent. I don't believe that UAW organizational leaders are any more inherently corrupt than anybody else. I guess the overall story to me speaks to how entrenched a toxic culture can be and how it impacts every level of an organization and how difficult it can be to undo years and years of this. It's like having a rotten foundation on your house, you can make as many cosmetic fixes as you want, but you're not getting at the root of that problem. So I think it's a good lesson to be sort of cautious and careful. People talk about culture change and, managing a business culture. And it's sort of one of those generic things that you talk about. But I mean, this is a real thing. This can easily get out of control, especially when you have employees that maybe they're a high performer, maybe they're an executive and you kind of let them run wild and do their own thing. It sets a bad precedent. I think this story speaks to the danger of allowing that kind of culture to breed, because UAW is really having a hard time climbing their way out of this. So anyway, if you didn't see that story, that's where they're at. Unfortunately, it's not a better update, but
Andy, what is the saying? Meet the new boss, same as the old boss?
That is that famous song by The Who, yes.
Oh, right on.
I feel like I've beaten this into the ground, this episode in particular, about this surge in labor activism amid this tight labor market and COVID and all that. And that includes the UAW, which just resolved its strike at the Deere plant in Illinois, the John Deere plant. And so they're having this moment, and just to see it undermined here by this continued clumsy corruption is, like you said, just disappointing at best and really irritating at worst.
Yeah, I agree.
And the fact that the monitor is essentially a person in an office with a leave a note box on the outside.
Yeah. He just checks the hotline.
Yeah. How do you?
He can take disciplinary action, actually.
Oh, okay.
So he's more than just like a figurehead. He's got some responsibilities. And so he is actively investigating as well as overseeing. And he has all kinds of rights to like investigate internal members and leaders and all that stuff. So,
Okay. So, not just a court-appointed babysitter in title.
correct. Yeah.
But if your former leadership is all being publicly shamed and their assets sold, if that's not enough to change your behavior, I don't know what is, other than just cleaning house.
Yeah, I mean, the good news is that like their new president, Ray Curry, has he was accused of taking free football tickets or something, like very minor, and he was exonerated of that internally. I think he's got a pretty clean record, so hopefully he will help.
Okay. All right. Moving on to My In Case You Missed It this week. My In Case You Missed It was a segment on Engineering by Design, the new show that we brought back 2 weeks ago, and then, we got back to it this week. One of the stories in that show was space launch startup fires a prototype projectile. Now, I found this interesting because Space Launch is a company that wants to throw things into space.
Spin launch.
Spin launch. Oh, it wants to spin them into space.
Yeah.
And did I not say spin launch?
You said space launch.
Oh, space launch. My bad. Thank you. Spin launch just took a big step forward. On October 22nd, the company held the first test flight of its suborbital accelerator at Spaceport America. See, I got a lot of spins and spaces going here.
I get you.
Spaceport America is in New Mexico. The launch system uses kinetic energy with a vacuum-sealed centrifuge to spin a projectile several times the speed of sound before it is released. The suborbital accelerator is capable of reaching 800 to 5,000 miles per hour. And it's primarily a test bed for the orbital launch system, the L100 Orbital Mass Accelerator. During this test, the accelerator deployed a test vehicle at supersonic speeds and then recovered the reusable flight vehicle prototype. Now, all of this is exciting because it comes down to cost. It's really expensive to go into space. And if the L100 works, it could reduce the fuel required to reach orbit by 4 times, reduce cost by a multiple of 10, and offer the ability to launch multiple times per day. I found this particularly interesting because they've received hundreds of millions of dollars in funding. Well, not hundreds, $100 million in funding, because they have a lower cost alternative to what SpaceX and Blue Origin and other commercial space companies are offering. But one of the things that also made me think about, and Andy, you're going to get to this a little bit in your In Case You Missed It, is, we're already having a problem with garbage in space. And I don't know that we need to make it easier and more, accessible.
Yeah. But that was making it more cluttered up there was going to happen probably regardless of whether there was this cool new catapult to throw stuff up there.
Yeah, that's true. I don't want that to be lost in this, is that you really have to check out this video because they have the entire test they filmed the entire test. And when you hear this thing get up to speed, it is just, you're dealing with something powerful and a touch scary. It was one of those where I was like really happy that the test went well. And your thoughts on spinning things really fast into space.
Firing them out a little chute.
Yeah.
So are there limitations at all? Does anyone know about like what type of product or item that can go in this centrifuge? Like,
I want them to just fire me to the office every day.
Yeah, like could they eventually put a person in space
I wouldn't
way?
recommend that.
I don't think so. It's a tiny little missile-shaped projectile that spins. I mean, if you look at a photo of this thing, it is just a circle with the tube towards space.
So these are satellites they want.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah,
satellites and that's it.
Well, satellites and other, I don't know, maybe it gets a little safer and you huck a human up there.
I don't know. I mean, long term, maybe.
Yeah.
I would never do that, but I don't
my
even.
goodness. I didn't even think about that. Like, okay, we actually cut down the flight time to Mars to get you. I don't know. I think if you start spinning that fast, maybe you turn to some sort of liquid.
Maybe something might happen with your insides.
Just like he made it there, we didn't really think it through.
Yeah, something is going on with David's brain.
Yeah.
He's got some weird sort of Mars brain.
Yeah, he's
happening.
actually thinking like logically. Something's gone horribly awry.
He changed his mind on the eVTOL.
Never. No, I'm flying that little quadcopter. Andy, your thoughts on would you allow yourself to be spun at 5,000 miles per hour and launched into space?
I mean, do you ever go at Six Flags? Do you ever go on that thing where they spin you around real fast?
Yeah.
Gravitron, but that's like, yeah.
That was one of the only things I liked, so I feel like I could get behind this.
You liked
Nice.
Gravitron?
Oh, yeah.
And that's like, for us, it was definitely a county fair chocolate fest deal, where you try like spinning upside down.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I was a cowardly middle schooler, so I liked the little spinny thing that puts you 1 foot off the ground rather than the cool rides that flip you all over.
The Scrambler?
Yeah.
You like the Scrambler?
Not
This
really.
sounds like the real Scrambler, man.
Yeah.
If you got in this thing, you're scrambled.
I would hate to think about how I would not be able to hang in the Gravitron now. Like, it's probably
It's
been
physics. You'd be all right.
It's probably been at least like 15 years, and I feel like, yeah, oh man, I love this ride, and I just come out heaving.
Come out heaving.
Yeah. One other thing that was pretty cool is that when I talk about them raising $110 million, these are not just, these are powerhouses like, I think it was Airbus and what was the other, Google that has bought into it. And in terms of an economic impact, of the $110 million that they've raised, about $40 million is going into building the new Statue of Liberty pedestal-sized accelerator in the desert. All right, enough about throwing things into space. The most like American approach to technology. Just like, I bet we could just throw it up there.
Let's just hook it.
Yep.
Yeah, that's some Uncle Rico, man.
Think I can throw this football over them mountains?
Andy, what's your in case you missed it this week?
So there's not a shortage of space junk orbiting around, as we briefly mentioned here. It gets worse when Russia, in a apparently ill-advised missile test, fires a weapon into space, blows up an old satellite, scatters debris all over, and so the astronauts on the International Space Station have to basically hunker down and hope they don't get blown out of the sky.
Oh my God.
So what happens? So they do this missile test, and so the State Department says the old satellite was splintered into 1,500 larger pieces and tiny debris that you can't see, numbering in the hundreds of thousands. And it's all traveling at more than 17,000 miles an hour. So at that speed, a speck of paint is enough to really do some damage. And obviously, if one of these larger things gets in the way, that's trouble too. So NASA has said that the astronauts, including 2 Russian cosmonauts aboard the space station, they were in the most danger right away, but they're still not out of the woods. And these parts, they're just up there floating around in orbit. This is a problem that's going to last for years. They moved the space station after a 2007 test, a similar one by China. It's just the U.S. does these things too. It's just that it's a question of how close you're firing things to the International Space Station. So if I recall correctly, Russia's satellite that they blew up was like 40 miles or something above it, and the U.S. does their tests apparently much lower. So it doesn't threaten their own astronauts.
Right.
I should note that Russia confirmed that the test destroyed a defunct satellite, but they said that it was carried out with, quote, surgical precision, and that it did not and will not pose a danger to space activities. I guess we'll have to wait and see on that
We
one.
were wrong about that then.
Yeah.
Everybody else was wrong.
Most claustrophobic and scary story of the week. That's great. Anna, go ahead.
I should say, it sounds like nothing catastrophic has happened as of our taping here, so that's some good news out of this anyway.
So you say it was 40 miles away. how is it that we've had 2 or 3 different situations that have threatened the International Space Station? Is my understanding of the vastness of space flawed?
I mean, probably yours and mine both, but
That was
but-
exactly my thought too. Like, isn't space like gigantic?
Yeah, why that one?
I mean,
Shoot it somewhere
low
else.
Earth
How is-
orbit apparently is a little more limited than we might suspect.
Okay. I just I don't
Man.
even know where to go with that other than, we talk about the problems with SpaceX's toilet the other week and how that is, now comparatively nothing when you're fearing would you say, speck of paint that could go rifling through it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
17,000
that's-
miles an hour.
That SpaceX story was more funny than anything to imagine. Like, if that problem occurred with people who spend $5 million or whatever on a ticket and then their toilet doesn't work. I don't know.
So, is basically the story was it's a threat to a multinational space team, and Russia said, no, it was fine.
Yeah. We said surgical precision.
Yeah.
So they meant,
We did exactly what we wanted
yeah,
to.
they meant to do that.
That's right.
Okay, cool.
And you said they had 2 on the space station as well.
Yes.
Wow.
It's hard for us globally to share space. It's just,
Right.
we couldn't like share Christmas dinner. You know what I mean? Like it's hard for us to share space.
I need like a scale model or some sort of diorama just to understand, because I'm picturing again the little blue marble and then everything else around it.
Right. And the International Space Station being like the tiniest speck in that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like the lone car in like a closed mall, and yet they still strike the spot next to it.
Right.
Like, is how I imagine it.
Very tenuous grasp on these sorts of things, apparently.
We should not be talking about space, either one of us. I
No,
don't think.
no.
No.
I'll have to get some sort of anyone else.
Yeah.
All right. Well, before we get out of here this week, let's move on to our final thoughts. Andy, I'd like to start with you. What do you have for us for your final thought this week?
I wanted to do this story actually, and in case you missed it, but I thought it was maybe less manufacturing-y than we would like for that segment. So I wanted to point to our taste test video of Arby's brand vodka that we ran this week.
Yeah.
Just in case any of our listeners were looking for maybe a Bloody Mary pick-me-up on Thanksgiving afternoon, maybe the next morning, what have you. If you're in a state where that's being distributed, maybe look into that. But
Are you suggesting people buy that?
I thought it was good.
Did you try it in a Bloody Mary, or
No, well, also,
you
I
just
don't
took a
care for
shot
Bloody
of?
Marys.
You just took a shot of it, David. That's why you don't like it.
Well, no, I've had shots of great vodkas where you take the shot and you're like, I feel great. Tonight's going to be awesome. And the shot of that one was fire, death, bad. I need to leave.
I need to
Ouchie.
lie down.
Yeah.
The video is fun, but also just as we are not astrophysicists, we are not vodka sommeliers either. So
No.
maybe
Despite-
take what we say with a grain of salt.
Yeah, despite the excessive
Gotta try it for
amount
yourself.
of
Yeah.
we were trying.
Oh, yeah.
We're going through the paces.
Oh, yeah. We're journalists.
Don't make a vodka that tastes like a tequila. That's just my takeaway. My friends and family have found quite a lot of pleasure watching my facial expressions as I struggle through it.
There you go.
Yeah. Did you ever get to if you stay through the end of the video, did you ever get to the bottom of that beaver sauce?
I don't know what that was. I didn't look. I didn't do any follow up research as to why it was called that or what it was containing. But yeah, I don't know.
Spicy horseradish, right?
I guess
Okay. A horseradish beaver sauce.
just be like a beaver brand. I don't
Yeah.
know.
I do enjoy our taste test series, and that was one I especially like it when we have kind of polar opposite takes on different things. When we try the mac and cheese ice cream, and it's sort of universally just why does this exist? I like it when we have a panel of 12 people and we can't agree.
Yeah.
Holy cow. Okay, guys. Beaverton Foods has an entire line of beaver brand sauces,
Oh,
jalapeno mustard, cream horseradish. There's all kinds of stuff on here. Cranberry mustard.
I gotta say I like the horseradish.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Beavertonfoods.com.
All
Okay.
right.
Yeah. No. All right.
Okay.
If one of you guys gets me in the Secret Santa.
Just
Beaver sauce.
a clean sweep of
Yeah.
beavertonfoods.com
Yeah, beaver sauce.
into a gift bag.
My final thought this week is a similar recommendation, but for something outside of our portfolio. I recently started listening to the Hooked podcast, and it tells the story of Tony Hathaway, a design engineer at Boeing who became addicted to OxyContin after he injured his back and then robbed 30 banks in a single year. And it is an incredible story, and Tony is a part of it, bringing the interviewer to the different banks that he robbed. It actually starts, he brings him to, he wants to bring him to, I think, the last bank that he robbed, and it's not there anymore. And it's so far, I'm not through the entire thing, but it is a very compelling story of, how anyone in any position can kind of get gripped by opiates. And I mean, this person transitioning into a rather successful, although brief, stint in crime. But if you're into podcasts, that might be one to check out. Anna, what's your final thought this week?
Honey mustard mayonnaise they also have.
Yes, just order. See how it says like add to cart?
There you go.
Add all of them to carts.
Select all.
It should be a select
Yeah.
all.
They don't have that option. Select all. Add to cart.
Right? I want the entire Beaver brand line.
I want all of it.
Mm-hmm.
They do have one piece of merch. It's a hoodie. It's got a beaver's face on it.
Yeah, it kind of looks like they ripped off the Bayside Tigers and put a beaver there.
Yeah, but I like it.
That sounds incredible,
Yeah.
actually.
It's out of stock. Sorry. Supply chain crisis, Eric.
Man, supply chain crisis grips Beaver hoodies.
Grips. Beaverton Foods.
No!
What have you done?
Anna, outside of Beaver products.
Yeah. So this is going to be a hot take, but you guys are going to know why I'm taking it. I would like to return my push button start vehicle for a regular vehicle, please, because I can never find my keys. Because I never have to put them in the ignition. So they're constantly somewhere else. And I would like that problem to stop.
Your
Because
car can find them, apparently.
I guess. I don't know. I lost my keys this week, and it was very stressful for the entire office because I made a huge deal about it.
Well, it's not a huge deal. You can't leave,
I couldn't
start
leave.
your car.
Yeah, I literally could not leave.
Yeah.
So that was dumb. But I found them in the end, and I want my old keys back. I want an ignition with the key goes in, and then I just take them out when I'm done.
I think, and again, I had mentioned how this is a first world problem, but now that I have the key fob, when I get into the old Yaris, that I still need to take the time to get the keys out of my pocket and put them in the ignition. I'm upset because I'm not already playing with the radio. But I think where you go wrong is you just go single fob, and that's where you go wrong. You need a couple of keys on that chain.
I do have a single fob, and it's constantly it's getting lost in the bottom of my purse, or I'm like, is it in the cup holder? Is it? I don't know. So I need a better system. It's not my vehicle's fault. I'm lashing out at my vehicle. I'm sorry, auto designers, you're not doing anything wrong. This is a me problem, but I'm just sort of grinding gears right now.
But I mean, when the first time I found out how expensive fobs were,
They're expensive.
and difficult to replace, and then when you borrow a car from another single fob person, it's just like, I'm gonna lose this.
I know, it's easily lost.
Yeah, it's as soon as you because you have it, you just drop it in a cup holder, and luckily, hopefully, one of the cars is they recognize that the fob's still in, and so you can't lock it. That's one that has saved me a couple of times.
Oh God, yeah.
But so if you have any sort of tchotchke or exotic keychain, please mail that to 199 East Badger Suite 100, so that way we can get some janitor keys going for Anna here.
I need a keychain, and I need some beet horseradish if you're on the Beaverton Foods website.
I mean, it sounds like they're all a winner. Zal, do you go key or do you go fob?
I still have the key, but every time I travel somewhere and have to rent a car, inevitably they give me the fob. And I'm sure for the impartial observer watching me struggle with that technology is just high comedy.
Yeah.
I mean, getting just furious in a Safeway parking lot in Phoenix. That's entertainment for the whole family.
Just fob problems.
Yeah.
I think the
Fobrams.
one of the interesting parts, Anna, is that like not only did you lose your key, but you had already lost your spare key.
We don't have to tell the whole
into a bag.
story. We don't have to do all of that. It just in the end, the keys were found, and that's the important part.
Yes. And you watch so many of those detective shows where you try to figure it out. So I'm out there trying to picture like, all right, she gets out of the car.
Yeah.
And she goes to put it in her pocket, but she throws it across the parking lot. So I clearly got to go and look on the other side in the leaves. And then I'm just like pawing through leaves.
Key spatter analysis you have to do.
That's right. It is. It's like it's slowing down in my mind where I'm like, I see you move and it just slowly goes like, whoa. And then, we get the people who are helping from the company next door. And then, the guy comes out and he's like, hey, are we all right here? Are we okay? We find it? We're on all fours under a car, sir.
We're clearly not fine.
It.
We're clearly not fine.
Yeah, excuse me. I'm like scraping behind a tire. No. But, thank you for helping. And he's just like, oh, you need some help? No? Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. See ya.
Yeah.
It's a high drama. My apologies to everyone who's involved.
All right. Keep those fobs tucked in your pockets, guys. All right. Before we get out of here, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. To email the podcast, you can reach us at Andy, Anna, or David at IEN.com with email the podcast in the subject line. We still have some t-shirts left, so if you want one of those, reach out. And if you want to subscribe to any of our daily or weekly newsletters, we'll make sure that you get the podcast in your inbox first. All right. Andy, before we get out of here, thank you very much for stepping in late notice.
Always a pleasure.
Really appreciate it. So for Andy, Anna, and Jeff, we sort of miss you. I'm David Manti, and this is the Today in Manufacturing podcast. We'll see you next week. We do miss you, Jeff. We do.
Thank you for listening to the Today in Manufacturing podcast.